Hello, my name is Brandy Hofer, your host and founder of Color Me Happy, a community podcast and book, all of which I started in my in-home studio whilst in the throes of motherhood. I am an artist, author, educator, and mother to 3 beautiful boys. We live and create together in our in-home studio that is tucked away in the quiet Canadian prairies. Our podcast and community was built to empower and inspire. We chat about everything from motherhood, the art world, business, and health in the most honest and authentic way. It's totally unedited and unfiltered. If you love what we do here, become a part of our free community, Color Me Happy. We have grown the community to support our members with features and interviews. Our link is in the notes. Thank you for being here. I sure do appreciate your time. Hello, welcome to Color Me Happy podcast. My name is Brandy Hofer, your host. Thank you so much for being here. I sure do appreciate your time. This is Teddy. Say hi, Teddy.
Hi.
We are together today bringing this podcast to you. Our guest is Kiki, and she is an intuitive eating coach. So she uses a bit of language that I actually personally don't choose to use, but everyone, take it or leave it. If it's for you, it's for you. If it's not, it's not. She's pretty unapologetic about it. So I go with what you put in your body, and I think about how it makes me feel and how I live a better life. And so I did really resonate with some of the things that Kiki was saying in terms of the mindfulness around eating and why we're doing it, and using this knowledge to your advantage in life, and ultimately, like we always talk about, see your everyday ordinary is extraordinary, and what that means for you. And in fact, speaking on that specific subject, we do talk about in our book a lot, and empower you how to seek that everyday extraordinary.
I'm washing it.
No, you're not washing my AirPods. They don't get washed. Nope. This is the new pair, so maybe that's what happened to the old pair. Did you wash them?
No.
No? Do you promise? Okay. So we take you through and we cue you in the book. This is why parenting's hard. Trying to do other stuff whilst parenting is always a struggle. You can't wash AirPods.
I know. I just put them in my ears.
Okay, put them in your ears. Yeah. You win, as usual. Round 1004 goes to Teddy. So, living a good life and finding balance is it's also a trigger word, because there's really no such thing, but fitting as many possible things that benefit you and make you feel genuinely good as a human being, like seeking your passion, pursuing it every day just a little bit, and in our book, we talk about that can be 15 minutes. Same with moving your body. That can be 15 to 20 minutes. And all these things kind of just add up and add up over time. And it's just being conscious of including them and checking into how you feel. And that's why I love what Kiki was talking about with food, because in North America in particular, I feel like it's a really restrictive diet culture, and as we know, when you say you can't have something, you kind of want it more almost. So finding that whatever works for you. So check out our book, Color Me Happy, See Your Everyday Ordinary as Extraordinary. You can get it on Amazon.
Can I go play with Johnny?
In a little bit, yeah. And also enjoy this episode, and thank you so much for being here. I sure do appreciate it. Say thanks for coming, Teddy.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for listening. Have a good day. Can you say have a great day?
Have a great day.
Thank you. Very good job.
Mama.
Yeah?
Can I go play with... I'm 40 right now.
Yeah, let's go check outside. They're so kind, and I don't know, I'm a bit biased, I guess, but the sense of community and the support you get is unparalleled, I think. And it's just the winter that's really hard to get through every year.
Yeah. That's why I left. And I mean, I left Toronto because I found the winter bad. So yeah, but I guess if you're well equipped for it, you can make the most of it.
Sure. I hate it. I like to run all year, so like when it's minus 47 in the wind chill, it's like
Yeah,
I get really stir crazy because I'm like a mover and a shaker.
totally.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I just said I'm the same. I bike everywhere, so that's the only problem. But I bike all the way through in Ontario. It would be different.
Yeah. That's so nice. I did like an artist project in Montreal for over a month, so I got to live there for a little, and it was so fun biking.
Yeah,
Like
Montreal,
there's nothing else like it. It's just so great. Beating the traffic on your bike. Like
totally. There's no traffic.
You're like, why isn't everyone else biking? I don't understand why you're sitting there every day in downtown traffic. And yeah, I guess people have a further commute too.
Totally.
My sister-in-law lives in Toronto.
Oh, amazing.
She do you know Wildcraft? Like that natural skin?
Oh, yeah, that's a really big brand.
Yeah, she's the product manager. So she started with them early on, and
amazing.
Yeah, so it's really cool.
Yeah.
I love that she's the product manager too.
Very
that
good.
means I'm just like the turmeric oil. I'm just like,
yeah.
I have an endless supply.
Amazing.
So great. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about you. I'm so excited to meet you. Thank you for being here.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being open to it. Well, I'm an intuitive eating coach, a little bit different than sort of the typical intuitive eating coach. I have a slightly different approach to it. But essentially it was all from my own journey in healing my relationship to food. I was very, what's known as orthorexic. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, orthorexia.
I am not.
Okay. Well, essentially it's an obsession with clean eating to a degree that, you're so focused on healthy eating that it's no longer healthy anymore. And that was definitely me for almost a decade. I was just very, very restrictive with food. And it served me well until it just took over my life. And all I was doing was thinking about eating or thinking about not eating. And I eventually needed to seek help when I found myself binge eating. I would restrict and then I would overeat. And then I was just always stuck in this weird cycle where I never felt good, even though I was so obsessed with health and wellness. And so I sought out various forms of support, but the one that was really game changer for me is now very similar to the method that I teach, which is really retraining your brain and your gut around hunger and satiety. And it's really a food freedom approach, but in a very disciplined way. So you're really being responsible to yourself around, do I have room in my stomach? What are the foods that I like? Getting really calm with eating. And I mean, I can get more into the process, but it was really game changer for me to just go back to normal eating because that's actually healthy eating. And so now I teach the same method to women struggling with orthorexia or also women looking to lose weight, because it is a really effective method to kind of get back to your healthy set point, right? So essentially think like the body without excess storage. And so that's why I say I'm a little bit different than most intuitive eating coaches, because a lot of intuitive eating coaches are very body positive focused. And I'm not saying I'm body negative, but I'm willing to say, if you want to lose weight, you can do it through intuitive eating. And not to say that if you're carrying excess weight and you don't want to lose it, I mean, that's fine, right? But if you do, there is a way to go about that. And I think that I'm kind of filling that gap, because a lot of the women that see me, they've done intuitive eating before, but they're like, I gained weight or I didn't lose my excess weight. And, I feel like I have to choose, like, do I heal or can I, lose my excess weight? And so I'm sort of bridging that gap so they don't have to choose one or the other.
Yeah, I think, and knowledge is power. I think a lot of people don't understand why their body works the way it works, and that's so individualistic for each person.
Yeah.
Yes, you use a lot of, and I noticed, and I was like, and I'm going to be honest, I was like, I don't know if I want to have her on my podcast because she uses all the triggering words that people like get pissed off about big time.
Yep.
And so I'm just like,
even scary for
I mean,
me.
she seems really nice, so we'll try.
Yeah, I mean, I have a really great business coach, and she's like, girl, it's okay to be polarizing. And I'm like, oh, that's going to piss people off. Like, you can't say skinny. And she's like, why can't you say skinny? Like, I want to be skinny. Like, other people want to be skinny. And, you know, so it's a little bit tongue in cheek. I mean, we're not all going to be, you know, as I say, French models by simply just honoring the needs of our bodies, but we can.
Right. And not everyone wants to be like, I definitely like to be strong, right? So like a French model physique isn't exactly the
not desirable for you.
Not strength to me. Like, yeah, you know, and I think people have to, maybe it triggers something within, right? And so I guess whatever works best for that person. And do you work with people who obviously all like a range of people?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of age range, yes. I mean, my youngest client is 21. My oldest is in her 60s, which goes to show it's like, especially for women, this relationship to food can be this lifelong battle. It can be so peaceful and just, you know, so normal and whatever. And then for some women, it can be the absolute number one focus in their mind for so many years. It's, you know, that's definitely how it was.
Do you want to talk about those emotional challenges and give us an example?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always say that it comes from external rules, external concepts that then become what I call head chatter, right? And all of this head chatter gets in the way of us really tapping into the feeling in our body, right? Because we have a stomach for a reason. A stomach gives us these visceral sensations, whether it be hunger, neutrality, balance, fullness, feeling stuffed, etc. And so, unfortunately, we've been taught, you know, whether it be through social media or even reading nutrition books, whatever, that there are certain things that are good, there's certain portions that are correct. And we start to build up all of this head chatter in our brains. And for some women, you know, they're just like, whatever, I'm just going to do what I want. But for a lot of, you know, someone like me, I'm very A-type, I'm very, you know, perfectionistic. We take on all of those rules and then we try to align all of those rules with also tapping into what we feel, and it gets confusing. And so the emotional element is oftentimes due to just sort of checking out of the feeling inside of your body, right? And kind of prioritizing external rules or judgments, whatever that we've picked up, or even just knowledge with all good intention. And then, you know, we start to dissociate from, okay, am I actually hungry, right? And then so we start eating when we're not hungry because we were told, oh, well, you have to eat after your workout, or make sure you eat within 30 minutes of waking up. And, you know, it's a slippery slope. Or, you know, oh, well, if it's low this or low that, then you can eat more of it. And again, we start to kind of like, oh, okay, I don't really need to trust when I feel balanced or good and fully satiated. I can just eat the amount that this person has told me is appropriate. So that's more on the orthorexic side. On the emotional side, food is a very it's a very pleasurable way to soothe ourselves, right? And we have all these different senses, but I'll be honest, taste, the sense of taste is the strongest, right? And so if we want some sort of immediate gratification, if we want to use something to soothe the discomfort in our life, food is a really nice way to do that, right? And even as a child, I'm sure that we've all had experiences when like we've cried and you know, I'm half Greek. And so definitely whenever any baby or child is like any way upset, it's like, oh, like have something to eat. Do you want me to take you for ice cream? And so it's natural that we kind of learn like, oh, okay, food makes us feel good. And while food is definitely meant to be pleasurable and you should always be choosing foods that taste good for you, we do have to be responsible to ourselves of really checking in on, well, if there's no room in my stomach, then food is not actually going to increase the amount of net pleasure in my body. It's actually going to start to take away, even if that donut or whatever it is super delicious. If I'm at balance, then that donut is going to make me feel heavy and I'm not going to feel good afterwards. And so, it's really about, I talk about like separating food from the movement of our life, because oftentimes women that struggle with emotional eating, they're entangling those two. So they're eating while they're doing something, and they're using the food to kind of soften the discomfort of what they're doing. And so it really takes discipline in terms of stepping it back and being like, okay, do I want to do this thing that maybe sucks, or would I like to take a break and eat? And if the idea of taking a break and eating is not attractive, it's likely because you're not hungry. You just want to take a break, in which case take a break, intentionally don't do the thing or intentionally procrastinate. Like, that's fine, but we just have to be, it's all about getting clear on what it is that we're trying to achieve and what it is that we're trying to feel or not feel. And,
So
and how
mindfulness.
Yeah, it really is. That's not the sexy way to sell it, but it is, right? It's all about, awareness of what's going on and being okay with, feeling the feelings, and recognizing that food actually isn't that much of a big deal. Like, we all know, for the most part, enough about nutrition, especially the women that I work with. It's not about, finding out the perfect food combination rule or that thing to restrict from. It's really just about, okay, what's going on in your life that you're using food as a coping mechanism? Because once you eat just appropriately, just, when you're hungry, something that you like, you'll likely be able to achieve all the aesthetic goals that you want. But we don't see it that way. We see it like, oh, if I want to lose weight, I have to do this. I have to get a trainer. I have to, X, Y, Z. And sure, if you want to gain muscle, get a trainer, go work out. But just in terms of losing excess storage, it's really not it can be a challenging undertaking because you're rewiring all of these habits and beliefs, but it doesn't require any sort of deprivation, quite the opposite.
Yeah. And I feel like, and I wrote a book specifically, it was called Color Me Happy, See Your Everyday Ordinary is Extraordinary. And I talk about routine and habits, and they are a hard adjustment at first, but then it's like, that's like a week to a month, not even most of the time.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you have to think about it, and it does feel hard. But then, like 30 days later, you're like, oh, that's just something I do. I don't have Coke at 9 p.m. anymore. I have a tea instead, right? Like, it's just like that one thing you subbed out. And Jen Sincero also talks about in her Badass Habits book is like subbing one habit for another or hooking a new habit on. Like, it's just, humans are so habitual. Those are the like little tricks to get them like be not so hard. And all those tiny little things add up over time, right?
Yeah.
And that one thing, like, gosh, a daily habit, and I'm just gonna be honest, a daily habit almost killed my dad in June. Like, he has diabetes, and he's not an alcoholic, but he would have a little thing of rum every night. And it just eventually caught up to him. And diabetics can't have alcohol, really. And so, that one small daily habit is like, it's such a huge deal. So like, I'm sure you guide people through adjusting those, and then being conscious and emotionally tuned in with yourself. I had an interesting guest on, and she talked about how they actually found out that there's not just like thinking neurons in your brain, but your heart and your gut. So you're literally talking about like thinking with your gut and trusting your intuition. And that goes with food, and that goes with like life decisions. And I'm listening to Financial Feminist right now, and she talks about emotional spending, right?
Yeah.
So everything's an emotional decision, and eating is the same thing. A lot of times it can be an emotionally charged decision.
I remember reading that 70 to 90% of all eating involves emotion and is driven by emotion. So it's not about, when women say like, oh, I feel like I'm an emotional eater. I'm like, girl, who isn't, right? It's not like, that we just check out and we can just like, let me just tap into my higher self and take my emotions out of it. And, of course. And that's why also it's meant to be pleasurable, right? And we're meant to like it. But as you say, it's about setting yourself up with the rituals and habits that will support your highest self, right? And making that automatic. And I feel like the first step, even before you can get there, is really figuring out what I call non-value-based beliefs or limiting beliefs that are kind of operating in your gut. You mentioned the head, heart, gut. There's a system called multiple brain integration technique, which is really interesting, MBIT. And if you read, there's a book, I think it's called M-Braining. And they even talk about how like there's so many other brains that we don't know about and they're going to emerge soon enough. Like there's a brain in the liver, et cetera, et cetera. But, we have to figure out what are the beliefs that are getting in the way of setting up those habits, right? Because we all know them, right? It's like, oh, okay, like wake up, drink water. If I do have a really busy day and I know that I'm always going to have a busy day, then, can I prep something before or can I have something accessible ready? It doesn't take rocket science to figure that out, but it does take a really fundamental shift of like, I'm worthy, I'm enough, I'm allowed to prioritize myself. For instance, I was just speaking with a client and she didn't want to snack because she was on a diet, years ago and there was no snacking and she got really thin. And so right now there's this belief of like, well, if I have a snack, that means I'm going to be fat, right? And I'm like, let's get to the essence of why it worked that time. Likely you weren't overeating when you were on that diet. That's why, you lost your weight. We can still achieve that goal without, the rule of no snacking. And so it's really about figuring out what are these little beliefs that are actually allowing, like running the show in my life, and they might not even be true. And so let's pick them apart and come back to a value-based belief that makes me feel nice and warm and fuzzy. And then I can, take the time. I mean, for me, I was always rushing through everything. And so I really had to practice almost like a mantra, like I'm allowed to take a break right now. I can stop and eat because I was always one step ahead or 5 steps ahead on everything. And that also meant that I wasn't really present with my food. And so it meant that I was overeating in the end because I was already thinking about, my dessert and then what I was going to do after that and et cetera, et cetera. And so I couldn't really enjoy it. And so really bringing yourself back to the present moment, just like you said, it's like that is actually what makes the ordinary extraordinary. It's not it being super bougie or expensive or whatever. It's about just you being there with it, right? Being in the moment. That's the most extraordinary feeling, circumstance, and it's always available to us, but we sometimes have to make the conscious intention to tap into it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. So what, besides like you going through that, when did you decide like, this is something I want to help people with? Like, this is my passion. It lights me up and I must do this.
Well, it happened organically. I was always totally obsessed with health and wellness. Well, not always. I'll say when I was about 18, when I left home, I went to university. I went to business school. I went to like one of the top business schools here in Toronto, and I just poured myself into books because I was just very the kind of person where it was like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. And I didn't even want to go to business school, but I was like, that sounds like something, that would be validating and people respect me for, right? So I just did it. But even in my first job, all I was ever doing was like looking at healthy recipes and like, finding little fitness routines. And so I always knew deep down that I wanted to do something in health and wellness. When I went through this phase of orthorexia, I thought, oh shoot, well now I can't because then I'm just going to be serving, this disorder in a way. So maybe I should step back from health and wellness. And I did that for a little while. And I kind of tapped into some of my other passions like fashion and marketing. But then once I fully healed and I recognized like, wow, this is so powerful. And I just felt like it was so like, oh my God, you don't have to diet and you can, have a nice body. You can free yourself from all of these different food rules. I just felt like it was so revolutionary that it was almost more of like, I need to get this out there to the people. And I started sharing it with my family and my friends. I ran women's circles and kind of shared the method. And then eventually, other people started asking me. And so I, would create groups and started charging people. And I just realized that it was so much more enjoyable than all of the other things that I was doing. And so it was really it was quite scary to just stop my actual work. I had different consulting jobs at the time and they paid really well, but deep down I knew that if I just gave my heart and soul into this, I could make it work. Of course, there were a few months where I was like, oh my God, I'm in debt. This is crazy. But I held the faith and now everything's fine. So thank God.
And now you're taking it to the UK.
I am. I mean, just the UK for a month. I'm going to Athens for a few months, which is my dad's from Greece, and I absolutely love Greece. And so it was always my dream to live in Europe. So now I'm doing that. And who knows, I'll stick around there or I'll come back. I think it just goes to show that like once something is allowed, like I always had this dream of like, oh my God, move to Europe, move to Europe. And as soon as now it's so accessible, I'm almost like 3 months. Yeah, that'll work. I'm like, then what? Right. So, and I think it's the same even with food, right? When something is so off limits, you're like, oh my God, I want it. And then as soon as we're just like, no, you can have all food at any time, everything becomes less, just less sensational in a nice, calm way. And I think that's kind of what's happened with me with Europe, just knowing that it's there and I can go. Now I'm like, maybe I do want to come back to Canada. So we'll see. But it's really nice to just be able to go where my heart takes me or where my passport takes me.
Yeah, there's a lot of freedom in that. And I'm sure a lot of your clients are online clients. So
all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice as well. I get to connect with people from all over the world. And interestingly enough, it goes to show where you throw out your energy. That's where it comes back at you. I mean, I've always had most of my clients in North America. And just over the past couple of months, I've been getting more and more clients in Europe or South Africa, like time zones that are closer to where I'm moving. And I didn't even strategically plan it that way. So it's almost like the universe is being like, we're going to make it easy on you for your little transition.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about that is like, even though they're clients, and I always find like, even with having a podcast and guests, I end up wherever I go meeting people. I'm like, oh, hey, like I recently got to podcast in Victoria and BC and met 3 other women there. And we did a group podcast and I realized I was like, I have not actually met any of these people and I'm going over to someone's house but it just felt like there was not a thought in my head, really. That was my husband pointing that out. He's like, have you met these people? I was like, absolutely not. See you later.
Isn't that
like, where are you? Are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're so good.
Totally. I sometimes I forget that certain people I haven't actually met in real life because of Zoom, because of all of these ways that we can communicate. I mean, nothing's better than in person, but yeah, I mean, it's quite magic the way that we can really deeply connect with people thanks to video and real-time audio and all of those beautiful things that I don't really understand, but I'm appreciative of.
Oh, I know. Yeah, so I have like, I'm just genuinely curious about intuitive eating, but do you still have to be like conscious of like hitting those marks of nutrition and like what makes you feel good and what doesn't make you feel good? You know what I mean? Like I am a person, I can't have eggs. Not supposed to have dairy. I have it sometimes, and gluten, and yeah, I can't even keep track. So many things. Yeah, like and I have to like keep the refined sugar down. And I worked with a naturopath for like 2 years, and figuring out why and what's going on and all those things, right? Like because I have physical reactions, right? So That's like not an option for me to like be like, oh, I feel like I have room for this cake. Like the cake has eggs and gluten in it, so I can't. Although last night I made zucchini chocolate cupcakes with no refined sugar, eggs, or gluten or dairy. So there is a way, but you have to be like a fucking mastermind to pull that off.
That does sound.
And I ate as much as I wanted because they were delicious. But like, so do you work with people? I guess my question is like, some people can't have some things because they can't.
Totally. Yep. I've worked with celiacs. I've worked with women that choose to be vegetarian or vegan, etc. When it's that kind of thing, and it's not like the way that you're describing it, there doesn't seem like there's emotional restriction there. It doesn't seem like you're, deep down, you're like, deep down, I want the eggs, but like, I can't. Right. And so if you were, to be
That
like,
was
I
a
want
tough routine to get out of, to be honest, was
not
eggs.
eating the eggs because they are,
I live with 4 boys. Like, we just make eggs for breakfast. It's like,
yeah.
I was like, it can't be eggs. Like, there's no way that eggs are causing this. And then I was
It's
like,
also such a
eggs.
cheap, I know. It's also such a cheap, easy breakfast. I mean, now living with my partner who's like a 6'4" man, I'm like, oh my God, how much do you eat? That thank God
I'm so hungry.
Because it's great. So I'm not here to be like, oh my God, we have to eat everything and whatever. So if there are clear, you know what, these foods don't feel good for me, great. Then, leave those alone. If there's oh my God, I can't have, any sense of refined sugar because I'm sensing that there's a fear of, refined sugar, then, I'm not about exposure therapy, which is what I got sort of prescribed when I was going through my initial healing. I remember I didn't want to eat this Starbucks loaf because I felt like, oh my God, it has gluten and sugar, and no. And I remember my therapist being like, then you have to eat it. It's you have to show that, you have to see that it's not going to kill you. And I understand where she was coming from, but that's definitely not my approach. If there are certain foods that you're like, they don't make me feel good, then that's fine. If there's you're at a party and you really like a few bites of cake and you don't have any particular allergies or anything like that, but you're fearing it because of fear of this might make me fat, then it's about reminding yourself, again, getting back to the value-based belief of, if I eat within the boundaries of my body, as long as there's room in my stomach and I don't stretch my stomach, then, how could this cake make me fat, right? It's not that cake makes me fat. It's overeating. It's eating out of order that can make me fat. And I know even that word is very triggering, but the truth is we can't always, especially with mantras in our head, we kind of have to keep it simple, right? And I know for me, and I know for a lot of the women that I work with, there is deep down, once we, uncover all the pretense, it's yeah, I'm scared I'm going to get fat, right? And so it's really, reminding ourselves, no, it's not that there are foods that will make you fat. It's, really respecting the boundaries of your body, hunger, taste, balance. And so, yes, I have worked with clients, of course. I mean, who doesn't have some sort of either allergy or something? I'm similar with some dairy doesn't really make me feel good. I can do the A2 dairy, like goats and sheep, thank goodness, because I'm Greek and like feta cheese. And I'm fine. With that said, for most of us, if we have a little bit of, even something that doesn't agree with us once in a while, we're not going to drop dead or, have this horrible reaction. And so for a lot of us, it's kind of calming us down of, it's not that these foods are, so bad. But, I just want to respect the boundaries of my body. There's no nutritional counting. There's definitely no macro counting or anything like that. But really, once you tap back into hunger, when you're hungry, you usually crave something healthy, right? So I don't like to label things as healthy or unhealthy because then we get too in our heads. And the truth of the matter is the body wants to thrive. It doesn't want to carry excess, and it's going to want nutrients, right? For some women that I work with and they're very into fitness, they're super about okay, I need to get 30 grams of protein here and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, your body will, if you're exercising, then your body will naturally crave protein, right? Calm down and tap in. You're likely going to want some chicken or whatever it is. You don't need to be so strategic because it can be a slippery slope. Again, I work one-on-one with clients, so it's intuitive. For some women that have just been totally checking out of their body and they need a little bit of okay, maybe instead of just a piece of toast in the morning, let's have something else with it. But for most
an avocado toast or something delicious.
Something, where the fat or the protein, let's add something that's going to tie you over. But I think for most of us and probably most of your listeners, they have a good enough sense. And it's really about getting back into that intuitive calm. And for a lot of women, they say oh, I don't think I have intuition around food. And we all do. It's more a matter of how can I get all of the head chatter out of the way, right? It's not how can I strengthen my intuition as much as it is how can I stop interfering with my intuition. And so for some of us, that means unsubscribing or unfollowing some of the very dogmatic accounts that are like yelling at us or giving us so many rules so that we can really connect and start to trust ourselves. And once we do that, and once we feel amazing on the choices that we're making intuitively, we can use that as evidence to be like, oh, okay, maybe I do have the answers, right? And for sure, sometimes we need a naturopath or whatever it is to kind of give us some testing, but let that come from a calm place of love versus fear, right? I did all of those tests and all of those, oh, I think I might need to restrict this or whatever. It was always coming from a very frantic energy of fear. And so I always just ask women, it's like, is this coming from a place of love or fear? Because if it's coming from a place of love, because, there's something going on with your energy levels and you have this intuitive nudge of like, I think something's off, then that's wonderful. That's your intuition, and follow that, and whatever, help you need for that, go for it. But for so many women, it's coming from this place of like, oh my God, well, like, my friend Sandy isn't eating gluten, so maybe I shouldn't be eating gluten or whatever it is. And it's like, well, you have the answers within you, and it's about feeling, does gluten feel good for me versus, okay, gluten's bad, I'm just going to take that out of my diet.
Right. One bad thing for one person is very different than another, for sure.
Exactly.
Yes. So this is more about, maintaining for each individual person, a habit, right? Like healthy habits that work for you that you can maintain for your whole life, right?
Yep. It's really about like reprogramming the habit that, or rather the approach to food that we had oftentimes as a child, right? As a child, before conditioning, we would naturally live our lives in the moment, and then eventually we'd feel hungry. So then we'd want something to eat that tasted good to us. We'd eat it until we felt good, because subconsciously we sort of knew, like, and then when I'm like, the next time I'm hungry, I'll just ask for food again and I'll have it, right? And then we would move back into the movement of our lives. And so, and that is normal eating. And if you eat like that, guess what? You're not going to be overweight or anything like that, right? You're just following your natural cues and rhythms, right? But what happens is, oh, well, I have work at this time, so I need to have my breakfast, and I'm going to, shove this in my mouth. And then, we're eating lunch at our desk, and then maybe we have a dessert afterwards and we feel kind of bad about it. So we're like, okay, I'm not going to have dinner because I've already eaten enough. And we're so in our heads that rules of eating always end up overeating, right? And so I use the recording method, we get back in touch with, okay, where am I at, right? Am I a little bit hungry? Hunger is a slow build. So it's catching when hunger becomes strong enough that we're like, okay, you know what? I can no longer go into the movement of my life because I'm too hungry, right? So I need to stop and fuel. Does that mean you have to be starving in order to eat? Absolutely not, right? But there needs to be some level of like, my body is chemically prepared to digest food, right? And so it's not, oh, because it's this time I have to eat something. And so again, it comes back to like, what are the beliefs that are making you eat when you're not hungry or taking you past the point of balance, right? And if you're carrying any excess, it's one of those or both, right? It's that you're eating when you're not hungry, whether it be for emotional reasons, for out of habit, etc., or you're taking yourself past just that nice feeling, because food is meant to energize us and move us forward. It's not meant to weigh us down, right? And so if we're taking ourselves to a state of like, oh my God, okay, well, now I have to sit down and like, I might feel a little bit bloated, then it's like, well, then you've eaten too much. And this isn't about, oh, did you stuff yourself and do you feel nauseatingly full? It's
just
like,
always makes me feel like an uncle at Thanksgiving, like
right?
Right there, and they're like, ah.
Right. And it's like, that's not what food is meant to do. Right. But I mean, I'm half Greek, to be honest. A lot of that culture is quite like, and I think it, I don't know, comes from the war of like, it's almost like good to feel so full because they're associating it with like, wow, I can, like there's an element of abundance there, versus if you look at cultures like the French or the Japanese, where it's very much known of like, no, you take yourself to a point where you feel good and neutral and spacious and almost like a nothingness, right? It's like, okay, perfect. Now I'm energized. Now I can go for a walk or whatever it is. And for a lot of women, that's difficult because they're like, no, but I want more. And I'm like, you want more likely because there's a rule that's operating that like, oh, I can't eat past 8 p.m. Or, oh, I'm not allowed to have an evening snack, or there's something that it's like, there's a rule. And so there's this like inner instinct to be like, give me more now, right? But if you truly knew that food is always available to you, all of the foods that you like, there wouldn't be such a need to hoard and to consume more, because it's about tapping back into abundance, where I can always have what I like. I'm going to just really maintain this feeling of balance and feeling of pleasure in my body. And I don't want to sacrifice that by possibly eating too much and then feeling weighed down, when I know that I can always just have more if I get hungry again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's all that scarcity and lack, but like shifting into abundance.
Exactly.
Which is so great in like so many different levels of our life other than just food. And I feel like if you work on that in general, it does feed into all the other areas of your life, becoming just a more conscious individual.
Totally. With, I think it's in MBIT, multiple brain integration technique, where they say that the gut holds the core identity. And so if there's something going on where you're disconnecting from your hunger, your satiety, whatever, then it's somewhere along the way you kind of came off of your path. And I know for me, I went to business school for the sake of like, that'll be a good thing to go to. And I think that's really when I disconnected. And, surprise, surprise, that's when I had my eating disorder. And I sort of built this identity around food because I felt like I was no longer aligned to my path. And once I really healed that and got back into my path, it bled into so many other ways. I mean, you talked about financial abundance and all of these things. It's like, once you feel like, okay, I'm on my path, I don't need to use food as a buffer to that, right? I can be raw and present to life. Then you're able to show up for yourself in other ways, in relationships, in, your finances and all of these things. So not to say that healing your relationship to food is going to heal all your problems, but again, everything's always connected, right? And it's not that
food is one major thing in your life. Like it's
going to happen every day, right? Or at least for the most part, every day. And so, I remember feeling so imprisoned by that, because I remember it was so bad at one point. And I remember thinking about like alcoholics or people that suffer with drugs. And I was almost jealous, because I felt, well, at least they can sort of just take it out of their life, because I feel so addicted to food and so imprisoned by it. But I'm never going to be able to just be like, okay, well, now I hang out with people that don't eat food. And now I live in a community where we never talk about food. It's like, no, like I'm going to have to face this. It's going to have to be part of my everyday. And so it's not just a matter of, cold turkeying it. You really do have to figure out what's going on behind the scenes. And it's never a food issue. It's always a life issue. And I ask that to a lot of my clients when we begin. It's like, if you had the perfect life where you woke up and you're like, wow, like I have the partner of my dreams, I have $1 gazillion, like I'm living exactly where I want to and doing exactly what I want to, would you ever overeat, or would you ever starve yourself? They're like, no. And I'm like, okay, well, just know that when I ask you some personal questions and as we go through this, like, know deep down that there's something going on with your life. And that's why there's something going on with your food. It's not, we can't just look at everything in silos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when you're in those stressful situations, your gut does like get really inflamed. It's so mad at you.
Totally.
Right? And that shows up.
Totally.
Like big time. So like it literally, like medically, and maybe you probably know more about this, but it medically like holds on to stool, and like then you get constipated, right? So if you want to talk about like the medical science behind stress and that.
I think the easiest way to example to share is, so women that are, and not just women, people that tend to be more on the depressed side, they oftentimes are more prone to constipation, right? There's this slowing down, there's the being in the past, right? Versus myself, I was always more prone to anxiety, being, 3 steps ahead, being very frantic. We're more prone to diarrhea, right? And so it's so interesting. I can tell based on if I'm talking for someone for a few minutes about their poop their personality, right? And it goes to show the neurons in our gut are so connected to our mind. And so how we think, how we feel is actually going to directly correlate to how we eliminate, how we store fat or release it, et cetera, et cetera. And so again, we can't just simply put ourselves on a meal plan or whatever it is. It's like we really need to address the feeling and our thoughts. And one of the first steps that I do with clients is like, catch your thoughts first thing in the morning. Are you, drowning in the past? Are you really nervous about the future? And bring yourself back to the calm, bring yourself back to the present. And that's a lot easier to do when we are living a life that we want to be, or at least designing a life that we want to be living, and reminding ourselves like, I'm on my path. And if that feels funky, like I'm on my path to my path, right? Which is what I had to start with, just to kind of like ground, because eating is in the moment as well, right? It doesn't matter what we ate before. It doesn't matter what we're going to eat in the future. It's about right now. And so it's sort of this beautiful invitation to meditate in a way with your food every day. And for some of the women that I work with, they're so good at like doing their journaling and their meditation in the morning and all this stuff. And then they go into like insane franticness for the rest of their day. And I'm like, it's about taking your calm with you, right? You can't just phone this stuff in and then, okay, now I'm going to be stressed, right? I've done my meditation, I've done my yoga, I've done all the things. Instead, it's like, why don't you create all of those moments in your daily life? And then sure, if you want to meditate on top of that, that's great. But you don't have to kind of set aside this specific time to do it. You can actually just sort of have your life as a meditation, which I know, and probably people are being like, that's nice for you to say, you don't have children. And I don't. So maybe I will rethink this when I have kids. But, that's, I was taught by someone who, she had children. And so it really is finding, the joy in the present moment, which I know your book really touches on. But
And I do have kids, so the book is great because there are just moments that are totally out of your control realm.
Of course.
So like I talk about like time management and like hitting green zones and avoiding red zones, and with kids, you just have to do that. And a lot of that is like sleep and hunger. Those are like the number one things that you have to hit to make sure everyone is happy, calm, and satisfied. So I love talking about with you intuitive eating, because eating intuitively has a lot to do with maintaining happiness and making sure you're satisfied and feel good about yourself all day. And I feel like if people are struggling with that and things are triggered emotionally, or things from the past, or being upset over something you ate earlier, like that can affect your whole day, right? And those really add up. And
Absolutely.
Eating should be one of the biggest pleasures of our life.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's a break in life, right? It's meant to be a pleasurable break in life. And exactly, you've nailed it, where if we're eating intuitively, then we're always within this range of maybe hungry and then a balance, right? But we're never super, super hungry. We're never super, super full. We always feel good in our body, operational, right? And of course, there's like shit's going to hit the fan sometimes with life, right? But if you can always just have your focus be, okay, well, I'm going to care for my physical body, and, life's not going to be perfect or whatever. And I'm not always going to make the most perfect choices because of circumstances, but I'm going to do my best. Right? I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be me. And it can be really simple and really freeing, especially if you've gone down rabbit holes of certain diets and things like that, where everything just seems so complicated and so involved, that just to get back to the basics of, what, when I'm hungry, I'm going to have something that feels good for me, right? That's not, oh, I'm just going to eat whatever the heck I want. It's, well, what do you want? If you can have whatever you want, you probably want something that's going to make you feel good, right? And if you're in a calm state, you can probably tap into what that is. And so there is intention around eating. It's not just, oh, well, now, she said I can eat whatever I want, so I'm going to eat cookies all day. You don't want cookies all day. And so that's why I say I don't go in with like a nutrition approach, because if you're super calm and connected, you don't need to do it through your head. You can do it through your feeling.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that's why maybe like, and this is a huge generalization, but like European culture versus North American culture with diet culture versus, I had pleasure, like eating is the greatest pleasure of life versus, that diet culture.
Totally, right? Their focus is, I want to feel good, right? So why would I ever take myself to being like starving? Like, no, right? I want to feel good. So when they're hungry, they'll eat. And they want to enjoy their food because life is short and every day is a little holiday in Europe. And so, they'll stop, and it's not, of course, they could do.
I feel like quitting work at 2 and
Okay.
I'm going to sit at this cafe, and I know because I painted there as well, and spent time there, and it is such a nice, although they dine like far too late for my like if we're trusting hunger, I'm like, it's 7 now and I'm so fucking hungry, life is going, I'm just gonna die if I don't eat, and no one's anywhere at any restaurant.
I know. Because though, here's the thing: you do have to surrender into their way. Whenever I go to Greece, it's like we're having more eating occasions because remember, we're sleeping from like possibly 3 to like 5:30, right? And
I just had to have a nap.
So exactly. So you wake up and then you're slowly waking up and maybe you're having a little snack and you're getting ready. So to be fair, when you do it that way, you don't actually get hungry until about 9, right? Which I know is annoying if you're coming from a North American culture and you've just, been at it all day. By 7 o'clock, you're like, guys, dinner, where are you? Right? And
where the fuck is everyone?
Yeah. They're just like, I just finished.
Literally in Paris, I was like, and I'm a social being. So like I was there solo, so I wanted to like meet people, and I had a partner, so I wasn't looking to like meet people, and in that way I just love meeting new people, and so I would like eat my meals, have like wine and dessert and everything, and just sit there and wait until people got there, and then 9:30 everyone would start showing up, and I was like, it's time to make friends.
Totally.
And then they'd invite me to their table and they're, are you eating? I was like, I have eaten everything.
Yeah.
Now I'm just gonna watch you eat, I guess.
Yeah, totally. I know it's always crazy whenever, especially in the summer, when you go out, even in Athens, like 11 o'clock at night, there's like little children around. I'm always like, Dad, like, why are there little children out? Like, shouldn't they be in bed? It's past my bedtime. What are they doing? Right. But they operate differently there. And it's the naps. The naps are key. But yeah, and I think there's less shame around certain foods. And when there's less guilt and shame, there's less need to kind of like secretly get it in or whatever it is. It's like, okay, sure. Yeah, I'm going to have a cake. I'm going to have a dessert. Like, there's no judgment that anyone's having, right? So I'm going to have as much as feels good for me. And that might be the full dessert. It might be a few bites. And then I know that, guess what? If tomorrow I want the same dessert, I can have it, versus the mentality in, North America. It's a little bit more like, oh my God, I'm having a dessert. I'm going to need to work this off. Okay, well, I'm just going to have all of it because tomorrow I'm not going to do desserts, whatever it is. And so we end up having, more desserts. And I think that's the key. They can eat in moderation, right? And therefore they don't need to restrict certain things. They can just enjoy life and food.
Yeah, I love that. And now we're talking about it, I was like, I need some tiramisu along with croissant, and I'll be happy. But in Europe, like, I don't want the shit that's sold here.
Totally, it's so much better.
No, I want to. Greece is definitely on my checklist, so I'm super jealous that you're going there right now. But I also want to get back to Spain, so I hope you have the best time ever. And keep in touch, and I'll keep watching for your adventures. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much. Hit me up if you're ever in Europe, and if you want to come stay with me in Athens, we've got a big place.
I might hold you to that.
Another person you're gonna meet in real life. Your husband's gonna be like, do you know this person? No, we're gonna go stay with them now.
Yeah, if I go, I want to go for like teach workshops, like an artist workshop, because I love hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. It's like, I love vacation, but I also like to get paid for them.
Of course. Why not, girl? No.
Yeah. Okay, super. Have safe travels, and we'll chat soon.
Chat soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Alrighty, thank you so much for listening. We sure do appreciate your time. If you want to become a member of the Color Me Happy community, it is free on Facebook. We share a lot of people who are in our classes, like portrait class or mural class or custom artwork class or anything like that, or getting creative with kids. They kind of just share what they're working on or in the sketchbook project. All free things. Well, not the classes, but the sketchbook project is free if you haven't checked that out yet. Yes, bud.
Can I go play with Foley?
Yes, we haven't done that yet. We're still. I record the intro and the exit at the same time, obviously. And we'd like to. Can you say thank you to our podcast partners?
Thank you for your podcast partners.
BioClean Disasters. Say BioClean Disaster Services.
Violating the last of safeties.
Good. Red Bicycle Communications.
What bicycle humiliations?
Oasis Hot Yoga and Spin Studios. Spit my AirPod out, please. No. Oasis Hot Yoga. Ready?
I was like, Cece, no.
Cece. Okay, one more. Or two more. Oasis Hot Yoga and Spin Studio.
Oasis Hot Radio on Oasis Hot Radio.
Close. Nouveau Laser and Aesthetic Center.
No, said it someday.
All right. I think podcasting is in your future. You're about as good as me at saying those titles. All right. We'll talk to you soon, friends. Remember, reach out anytime at Brandy Hofer Studios. I'm happy to chat and answer any questions you have. Have an awesome day. Say, have an awesome day.
Have an awesome day.
There we go. If you're looking for some time for yourself to relax, release, and unwind, Oasis has the perfect space for you. They offer yoga and spin classes of all levels. Whether you are a beginner or advanced student, Oasis thrives on accommodating all aspects of the practice. Let their serene environment and gracious staff help you in your journey of peace, healing, and strength. Sign up online at www.oasishotyogastudio.com or by downloading the Oasis Hot Yoga Studio app. Feel like yourself. You deserve it.